welcome to another Digital Jamaica Live. I'm your host, Katie Francis. Special shout out to our viewers on LinkedIn, Twitter, and Google. All right. So today we are talking about social media exit, right? How ways that you can market your brand or your business off social media, still online, but off social media, as well as there are some offline things that you can do to help grow your business as well. Because the truth is, some of us are just tired, okay? Social media can be very exhausting and unrewarding because you're spending all this effort to create this content, and sometimes it doesn't hit the way you want it to hit. It doesn't get the kind of engagement you want it to get. There's no real return on the investment, right? So the effort that you put into creating this content, you're not seeing that back in terms of, you know, any kind of engagement with the content. So it can be difficult. And on top of all of that, social media is changing. Um, I came across a saying, I don't remember which blog I was reading, and it says, well, if your business model is any good and your business is flourishing, you can essentially turn that business into an ad. And pretty much that's kind of what social media has become. No, of course, I am quoting and I may have completely misquoted that, but social media has developed significantly from when it started a couple years ago, where it was just platforms where you can go on and you can meet people, you can, congregate around special interests, you can talk to family members, stay connected. Now it's really just a giant billboard, right? So if you look at the different platforms, Facebook and Instagram, let's say, the two biggest platforms in Jamaica in terms of social media platforms, Facebook, for a long time, and it's not just recently, but Facebook has become effectively a pay-to-play kind of platform. It is damn near impossible to gain any kind of traction without having a serious ads budget on Facebook, regardless of what they want to talk about, just content for family members to connect and all that good stuff. That's all well and good. But if you have deep pockets and a sexy budget, you can grow your business or your brand on Facebook. And that was the justification, right? It's supposed to be a family and friends networking platform. So if you want to promote your business on there, then you have to pay for it. Instagram was working fine for a lot of people up until recently, and Instagram is the second largest platform in Jamaica. But then it has effectively abandoned its core users in pursuit of TikTok. So TikTok is the new kid on the block. They came in promising ridiculous reach, like super engagement and reach. And at first, it worked really, 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 really well. But then that's what happens with every social media platform. When they just come in, they promise you super growth and super engagement and all that stuff. That's the hook to get you to sign up for these platforms. And then once the platforms start growing, then it's less about individual creators and more about, okay, how can we leverage users on the platform to gain more advertising space? And so TikTok started doing that really well, and Instagram got jealous because Instagram is the OG of doing stuff like that. And so they want to regain their market dominance, and has effectively lost their value proposition while doing that. So now we don't really know what Instagram is supposed to be about. Nobody really wants to create reels, but we have to create reels because apparently creating reels will help you to grow. But that's not necessarily true, because studies have shown that for some brands, reels don't really make a difference one way or the other. And so there's that. And so Instagram has moved away from what it originally was, which was a really easy to use platform where you can, share your pictures, share little videos, go on about your business. And now it's a whole other beast. TikTok is not so secretly forcing users to pay for views. Yes, It has created several programs, and they're pigeonholing creators into those programs and then forcing creators to pay for views. That's happening over on TikTok. So, and then the other thing with TikTok too is that if your brand does not fall in certain categories, then um, you don't really have access to the creator fund. Not, sorry, not categories, but if you're not in certain geographical areas, you don't really have access to the creator fund. You never really had access to it on Instagram anyway, but there were ways around that. You don't really have access to the creator fund on TikTok at all. And then there's Twitter. Twitter is a special place. Twitter can be very ghetto at times, but really, Twitter is more effective if you fall within certain categories. So, if you're talking about tech, specifically blockchain, AI, NFT, or coding, then you will gain some traction on Twitter. Or if you're talking about finance, um, or if it is a black Caribbean woman, then, and you're in finance or you're in tech, or there's a lot of nuances to that space, but really the two major categories on Twitter is finance and tech. So if your business or your brand is not in any of those spaces, then Twitter may not be the best place for you. And LinkedIn is good for business networking. But the downside to LinkedIn is LinkedIn reminds me of high school cliques. And maybe it's just me, but LinkedIn reminds me of high school cliques. And it's where the popular high net worth people go to virtue signal to each other, right? So they go there and they congratulate each other on how wonderful they are as CEOs and managers of businesses, and how great their achievements are and all that good stuff. But I'm not really sure that there's any value to you as an observer, if that makes any sense. What is the value you're getting out of this? Maybe the value is that you're inspired or motivated. I'm not sure, but there's a lot of virtue signaling going on over on LinkedIn, and sometimes it gets difficult to cut your way through all of that and actually connect and network. There are ways to do it, but it can be difficult. So that's pretty much what's happening on social media platforms. I mean, I could talk about Clubhouse, but do we use Clubhouse anymore? Not really. Clubhouse was like a fad kind of thing. I don't. We certainly downloads are in Clubhouse. Downloads have slowed significantly, and I don't hear anybody talking about Clubhouse anymore. Particularly because I think what the attraction was with Clubhouse at first was that it was exclusive, right? So if you had the iPhone and somebody sent you an invite, you could go on and you could go, oh well, I got invited to the club, right? And then when Clubhouse said, well, no, everybody can come to the party and join the club, people are like, actually no, because it's not exclusive anymore, and they like the feeling of being in an exclusive space. And so when it became not exclusive, then people are like, no, exit. So there's that. YouTube is a beast. YouTube is a beast. It is very difficult to create content for YouTube, especially as in my opinion, Jamaican and Caribbean creatives. If you're not talking about sexy stuff, if you're not talking about entertainment stuff, if you're and there's a gimmicky aspect to YouTube, to get attention and to get engagement, you have to employ some gimmicks in there that as a small business or creator you may not want to go that route because it may not be good for your brand image. And so you have to be very careful with the type of content you are creating for YouTube. So, and YouTube is technically not a social media channel, but I'll throw that in there nevertheless. So that's pretty much what's happening with the different social media platforms. And it can feel as if all your efforts are for naught, and all your creative endeavors on these platforms are for naught. But there are other ways that you can go about building your brand. Now, I am not saying, don't get me wrong, I am not saying social media is bad. I am not saying that social media isn't useful as a brand awareness tool. It is exceptionally effective. Um, with caveats, but it is exceptionally effective as a brand awareness tool. And when you're thinking about building out a funnel for your business, meaning how are you going to attract people to your brand or business, and then where you're going to send them to, at the top of that funnel, social media sits very nicely. It is, you can, everybody can come in, they can get to know you, who you are, what you do, blah 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 blah. But then keeping them on social media is counterproductive, because then there's so many distractions. There are a whole heap of other people telling them other things, and since COVID, the social media competition has gotten worse. Right? And so you want to be able to funnel them off of social media platforms to more private control spaces, where you can directly communicate with them and build relationships, etc. Right? So there are other online platforms that you can funnel them to. And while you're doing that funneling, you're still going to have to create content. You cannot get away from that. You're still going to have to create content, but you can do it in a more sustainable way, where you don't feel like you're constantly having to create content. And then instead of just creating, churning out content after content after content, you're building relationships, and you're driving, you're being more deliberate in how you communicate, not just through content, but the other ways that you communicate. And what I'm saying may not make any sense to you right now, but it will in a minute. It will in a minute. And our special guest is here, Kamisha Anderson. But before we go over to Kamisha and we really jump into the 10 things that you can do, or the 10 ways, 10 sustainable ways you can go about marketing your brand off of social media, just quickly, a word from our sponsors, right? So the Digital Jamaica Live show is possible because of our sponsor, G5 Cybersecurity. G5 Cybersecurity assesses your company's network for security vulnerabilities and to see if you comply with the Jamaica Data Protection Act and the GDPR. Now you may think, oh well, I have a small website. Nobody will cyber attack me. Why would they need to cyber attack me? Well, practice. They use your website to practice. Because I recently just relaunched the Digital Jamaica website, and within minutes, I was getting spam comments and spam form submissions and all of that stuff. And they were able to help me fix all of that and correct all of that, all of those issues. So if you are interested in protecting your little corner of the internet, then definitely check out G5 Cybersecurity at www.g5cybersecurity.com. Okay, so guys, our special guest today is Kamisha Anderson. Kamisha is a brand journalist who has developed an impressive standing amongst local brands, and organizations and individuals, and she has helped them build a positive and lasting reputation through expert storytelling, both in digital and traditional spaces. Okay. She has a bachelor's of arts degree in journalism and honors degree. And I like to emphasize the honors degree, because I know how hard you have to work to get the little gold stars. Okay. From the Caribbean Institute of Media and Communication at the University of the West Indies, Mona. She has spent several years working with individuals and corporate brands across several industries to make an impact and increase their visibility through strategic and dynamic public relations strategies. She's a consummate professional, always careful to pay attention to details, understanding the needs of her clients, fostering great client relationships, and delivering excellence in service. Welcome, Kanisha.
Hi, Kadia. Thanks for having me.
It's good to have you on the show. And guys, transparency.
Mhm.
We have worked with Kamisha, Digital Jamaica, and the Digital Disruption Agency have worked with Kamisha, and Kamisha has been responsible for several growth milestones with Digital Disruption Agency and Digital Jamaica. And so when I was thinking about what are some of the ways that I can what are some of the ways we have gone about building Digital Jamaica and the Digital Disruption Agency, you automatically came to mind because not only were you able to help us create other avenues to brand and grow our business, you gave us a lot of tips and ideas about how we can maintain the momentum that we created through these avenues. So you were the perfect person to talk to about this morning. So welcome to the show, Kamisha.
Thank you again for having me. And I'm so happy to see how Digital Jamaica has grown since that time. I'm happy to see
Yes.
what you've been doing, that this show has gotten, because I know we've talked extensively about this show. So I'm happy to see it up and running.
Thank you so much. And as I said, guys, Kamisha was instrumental. And I know that you're saying it. You were instrumental in getting the Digital Jamaica live show a lot of airplay. But we're gonna talk about it. We're gonna talk about it. So guys, we're just gonna jump right in. If you have been to any of my workshops, classes, courses, I love a good presentation. Okay. So I created this presentation called Smexit Social Media Exit, right? So we're going to talk about some of the ways that you can brand off social media. So how it's going to go is I'm going to give you 5 digital ways that you can build your brand without social media. And Kamisha is going to give you 5 traditional ways you can build your brand off social media. Because one thing I always say to my students is that marketing integration is important. So you don't just focus on the digital and you don't just focus on the traditional, but anywhere where you can integrate these two, you can integrate these two. Sorry, so you can emphasize and amplify and maximize growth, right? So you don't dismiss traditional ways of doing things because they're still very much relevant, and at the same time you don't downplay the digital side of it either. So you need to find a healthy balance between the two. So let's start with the first thing you can do on social media is create evergreen content. As I said before, guys, you're not going to get away from content, whether it's in the traditional media space or whether it's digital media. You cannot get away from content because that's one of the ways that you're going to engage your audience, right? So evergreen content, though, instead of creating content for content's sake, because then you have two ways that you can create content. So you have short form content, which is content that's easily digestible, short pieces of content like what you create for a TikTok or a social media, because you don't have the space on social media to really expand on your thoughts, right? So you're limited in the type of content that you can create there. And because it's short form content, it means that you have to be creating more content to satisfy that space. But with evergreen content, you're talking about creating content that is search optimized or SEO optimized, and that will always be relevant and fresh and stays relevant and fresh over a longer period of time. So, what do I mean? It could be a podcast, it could be a blog, it could be ebooks, whatever it is. Once you are creating content that has information that people will always want to know, regardless of when they come across the information, then it is a way of continuously introducing and reintroducing people to your brand, and reestablishing over and over and over again your expertise to the new people who are being introduced to your brand. And that is something that you constantly have to do, right, Kamisha? Even in the traditional spaces, you constantly have to reaffirm and establish your expertise, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. And you also want to keep people updated. You want to keep your clients and your customers updated with what you're doing. You might have introduced a new service that the last time you produced content or the last time you were in the newspaper, you didn't have that service. You weren't providing that service. But now you are. You need to let your clients and your customers know, or
Right.
potential clients and customers know.
For sure. And you can do that by creating evergreen content, and evergreen content can be solely focused on the product or the service that you're offering. But instead of talking directly about the product or service that you're offering, you're creating topics around the product and service that you're offering, as a way of indirectly introducing this thing to your audience and then positioning it as a solution to your audience. And I'll give you an example. Uh, let's say you have a hardware company, or you have a company that sells tools, hardware tools. And instead of going, hey, buy a hammer or buy a wrench, you're talking about why you would need to buy a hammer and why you would need to buy a wrench. Well, maybe you are a DIYer, right? And you want to be able to fix your bathroom pipe is leaking and you want to be able to fix it yourself. There's a special tool that can help you do that in 5 easy steps, right? Or you're giving them ideas about how they can put an extension on their home or in their kitchen, or how you can renovate your kitchen with these simple tools and blah blah blah. So that is content that people are always going to want to know about. People are always going to want to know about ways to improve their homes. People are always going to want to know about ways that they can cost effectively do that as well. So you're creating content around things like that, and then in the content positioning your business to provide the solution for this issue. Yes, make sense? Okay, so that's number one. Number two, Kamisha, what is one non-digital way that we can go about building our brand offline?
And this is actually the perfect pivot, Kadia, because talking about storytelling, which is where I would come in the traditional space, so in newspapers, on TV, on radio, because you're not going to get a write up in the newspaper, in the Gleaner or the Observer to sell your products. If you bring
Right,
that to them, that's an ad. You're going to have to pay for that. But when
right,
it comes to earned media, it's about telling the story that would get people hooked, but also positioning yourself in it as the solution. So doing that in the traditional space, in the newspapers, in the radio, on TV, and we call that media relations. So it was quite interesting hearing your introduction and your breakdown of all the platforms, because I remember some time ago Instagram and Facebook went down for the day and people started scrambling. People were losing
lost their
their
mind.
heads because the only place you could find their brand was on social media.
Mhm.
So I would say if the only place your brand lives is on social media, then it's not your brand. It's Instagram and Facebook's brand. Because at
Exactly.
any minute, they could take it away, it could go down, it could disappear, God forbid, and then what happens to your brand? So we'd like to introduce non-digital ways. Don't get me wrong, social media is super important, especially now, because now somebody wants to find something, social media is possibly the first place they'll go. I saw a report recently that people were using TikTok to find in more information than Google, which is kind of
Troubling.
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 Troubling. We thought Google was bad. Now people are using TikTok more than Google. So you want to have places outside of social media where people can find your brand, where people can be introduced to your brand and your story. And that's where like the newspaper, the traditional spaces like newspaper and radio and television. So where I as a PR consultant would come in, or a brand journalist, as I call myself, would come in, is that I would take your story, take your company's story, what you do, how you started, your challenges, all aspects of the story, and build something around it that media, traditional media, would be interested in. And then you could get a write-up in the newspaper about your brand or about something that relates to your brand, a story that positions your brand as a solution, as Kadia said, or a development in your brand. Maybe you formed a new partnership that's interesting and people would want to know about it. But whatever the story is, traditional media, traditional press is always a good place to be. Outside of social media, it's a very good place to be. It also builds credibility because oftentimes we call out, the traditional media, the Gleaner, the Observer, they do this, they do that. But at the same time, when you see a brand in the Gleaner or the Observer, it adds a level of credibility to that
Yes.
brand. So if you're somebody, you're looking for graphic artists, you don't know any graphic artists, you don't know any graphic companies, you Google them, which one are you more likely to choose? You're more likely to choose the one that was featured in the newspaper because that one adds a bit of credibility. At least you know
Yes.
that that one is an actual company
Yeah.
that other people have used and other people are interested in. So
Yeah.
it adds that layer of credibility to your brand
For sure.
outside of the fact that Instagram and Facebook might take away your brand at any minute, this level of credibility is something that will help to strengthen your brand and
And
just looking
social
at
proof.
social proof. Correct.
And Kemisha helped us to do this too, guys, because we have appeared, and I kept saying we because it was we at the time. We had appeared on, was it TVJ or was it,
It
yes,
was both
twice.
actually. Right.
TVJ and CVM, right? So, because guys, what you need to also understand is that traditional media, they're also looking for content,
Mhm.
right? And there are things that they want to talk about because they want to stay relevant. And so they're looking to people who have the expertise because they don't have the expertise. Simon and Simone don't really know about digital marketing. So they're going to invite a digital marketer onto the show to talk about digital marketing. And that's what happened when we appeared on the show. I think there was one where I was asked to talk about how to, like, using images and stuff that you found online. And there was another one where so it happens on several occasions where we were on national television talking about these things as the expert guest on the show, right? And all the time, automatically after we are playing the show, you can see where you can see growth, where either we had more followers, we had more people signing up to the newsletter. There was always some after effect, some ripple effect that came from that, that was positive in our growth process.
Because
Also, Kimisha, you helped us to do that with the Observer as well, when she was able to get us a partnership with the Observer where we would do the Digital Jamaica live, and then there would be a write-up in the Jamaica Observer. And I can show you an example of one right now, where after the show there was a write-up, and here it is. So this was one example where after the show there was a write-up about the guest on the show, and of course directing people towards the show, which is can see here, watch Digital Jamaica's full interview. So this way too is building traffic. So this is another way that we are funneling people to our other spaces so they can see the other things that we have going on, because it didn't send them to social media, it sent them to our YouTube channel because we wanted them to watch the interview that we did, right? And so that was one way that we were creating content that we could multi-purpose. So creating content for our platform that then we are then repurposing in traditional media spaces to drive traffic and again expand our reach and awareness and all that good stuff, right, Kamisha?
right. And then it also goes back to the credibility because anybody can have a YouTube show. Anybody can set up a phone camera and some lights and say, we have a YouTube show. But your digital show also being featured in traditional press adds that layer of credibility to the show. It's a
Yeah.
real show, it's a serious show, it's not no fenke show because it's
Yeah.
in the traditional spaces now. So
Right.
that level of that layer of credibility, you cannot downplay that.
Yeah, we've definitely benefited from that. All right, moving on. So number two, Google My Business. So this is what you call location based marketing. And location based marketing is really, and I'll show you an example of Google My Business so you can get a better understanding of what I'm saying. So, location based marketing is pretty much where you're positioning your brand or business where it is easy to find depending on what persons are searching for in particular places. So when I Google something like rafting on the Rio Grande, this is, I'm wanting to find something that is happening in a particular location. And what comes up is Rafters Rest. And if I should click on it, I'll get the map and I will see photos about Rafters Rest. Because what happens is, if I have been to Rafters Rest, I can upload pictures as well, and Google will pull those pictures together. So what you're wanting is, you. This is exactly what you want to happen when somebody Googles something in a particular location. You want your business, your brand to show up, and as you can see, so you can have your address, you can have your telephone number, your business opening hours, you can add your website, you can add a little bit of description as to what your business is and what your business does. So this is a great way of showing up in the Google search engine without paying top dollars, and at the top of the Google search engine too, without paying top dollars for Google ads, because them things ain't cheap. For it to actually work, it's not cheap. And so you have to pay. So without having to pay, this is something that you can easily um do. And I've seen where it worked. Now, one night while I could not sleep, I just created a simple Google My Business profile for the digital disruption agency, and I've had several calls coming from that Google My Business post. So it can be very effective. All right, Kemisha, your turn.
My next tip is sponsorship. So you see these conferences, you see events, and then you see all these companies that have sponsored. They're not just doing it out of the goodness of their hearts. They're doing it because it adds value to their brand. So sponsorship gives you another layer of visibility. And I know for small businesses, especially, you say, but I don't have the money to sponsor. There's also sponsorship in kind. Let's say you own a graphic design business, and the conference obviously needs graphics. It needs social media graphic. It needs graphics for the screen at the conference. If you sponsor that graphics package, and then they say, oh, in the middle of the conference or at the end when they're thanking all their sponsors, they say, I thank XYZ company who provided all the graphics. That's your brand right there getting visibility. And people at the conference who might need graphics later on can say, oh yeah, I saw XYZ brand at that conference. They provided all the graphics. All the graphics look good. So now we can go out and look for them and we can use them. So that's another way to strengthen your brand, add visibility to your brand without specifically using social media. And social media might come into it as well, because a lot of most conferences are going to promote online, and then your logo, your brand is also included in that.
Even more social proofing.
Even more social proofing, right? So that's another way to get involved. You don't always have to have a lot of money. As I said, there's sponsorship in kind. If there's a service you provide,
Yes.
or some goods you provide, you can still provide what you can and get that visibility in return.
Right. Good.
So
And I'm
that's
glad you
something to look
mentioned that
into.
part. It doesn't have to be monetary sponsorship. It could be that you volunteer some time. It could be that you volunteer your expertise. It could be that you help with the planning, whatever it is, in exchange for your brand being recognized as part of the support mechanism for the event. That can really give you, that's really good social proofing. And it's also good associating
Right.
your brand with particular events that could be useful, especially if it is something that will attract your target audience. So you don't just go on sponsoring anything, but you have to be strategic with where you sponsor, what you sponsor, and make sure that you're focusing on areas that your target audience would be interested into, because you want to be visible to them, right?
Right. And as a small business, if you're just starting up, chances are these conferences are not going to come to you. So you have to also keep your ear to the ground to
Right.
look out for these opportunities, and don't be afraid to approach these opportunities. This big conference happening at Jamaica Conference Center. You're a small business. Don't be afraid to approach them. The Jamaica Stock Exchange hosting their big conferences, the Ministry of Tourism hosting their big conferences. As a small business, you're gonna have to stick your neck out there. Don't be afraid to approach them and say, here what? This is what we can provide. Is there an opportunity for us to sponsor in this way and
Yeah.
then to get that visibility for my brand?
And
Because if
sometimes you have to. Sorry, go ahead, Commissioner.
right, I was saying, if you as a small business doing graphic design, you're able to align with a Jamaica Stock Exchange, the Diaspora Conference, Ministry of Tourism Conference.
Mhm.
It really adds also, again, credibility, because there you go in the mix with all the big names at a
Right.
conference like that.
And you're helping them save money, and of course, and that too. And sometimes, guys, these events, they put out call for speakers, and so if you have an expertise, you can answer the call for speakers and become a speaker on the event. That's another way. It's not necessarily sponsorship, but that's a part of it, because your brand will also now be associated with that event. So look out for call for speakers or call for moderators or whatever with these events, and then go for it, right? All right,
Yeah.
guys. One-on-one marketing. So you're leveraging data to deliver brand messages targeted to an individual prospect. And what do I mean? Email marketing, for instance. Email marketing is a good place to funnel people from social media too, because then on social media you're talking to a mass, you're talking to a larger group, but through your email you can create personalized messaging, right? Um, that will then speak directly or be more relatable to individuals within your target audience. And that's always a good thing, guys. Never underestimate or don't underestimate the power of email. Now, we use email for business mostly. You're at work, you have a business email. We don't think of email outside of business, but it can be a really good tool to build up your audience base and then convert. It's a really good conversion tool to move them from audience to actually paying customers or clients, right? So one-to-one marketing, email is just one example of one-to-one marketing. I have other examples of one-to-one marketing that we're going to get into, but email is just one way of doing that, right? All right, Kemisha, what is your next tip?
My next step is corporate social responsibility. Now,
Right.
you see all these big companies, and every time you see their annual reports or on their websites, you see corporate social responsibility.
Mhm.
Now, we want to think that they're doing all these good things in the community just out of the goodness of their hearts. And
Right.
we hope, we hope. But there's also a section to that that is very good for your brand. It might also be good for your tax, but your taxes, but there's also, it also is very good for your brand, because it helps to put you in the community. You're a part of that community. And if you're a smaller or medium-sized company, it might be a bit more difficult to, flesh out the 10 million and the 12 million for a project or to help a community. But there are other smaller things that you can do. You can also spearhead something. So you
Yeah,
see a
create an
cause,
initiative.
right? You see a cause in your community that you could spearhead and then try to get other bigger brands or bigger companies or individuals to contribute to it. But you
Yes.
know at the forefront of it while you're helping, and that should always be a part of what you're doing. While you're still helping, you're still also creating that visibility for your brand as a company who cares.
Right.
Because when it comes to capitalism and all of that, it's a very cutthroat. It's very cutthroat and hard. So we want to create brands that care. You find that niche, that thing you care about, whether it's the community, it's education, it's the environment, it's animals, whatever it is, and add your voice to that and help to get that initiative or to get that cause to the forefront, to get it into the spotlight, and your brand will go along with it. So that's another way to help strengthen your brand.
And I can think of one major example, and that is the her flow. Shelly
Mhm.
Ann Weeks, who is she started out as a columnist talking about, sexual health and all of that good stuff. So it was a really good pivot for her to then focus in on period poverty and talk about what is the real situation going on with women in Jamaica who really can't afford basics like sanitary napkins. And she really leaned into that. She created, through her efforts, there's now a period awareness month. She has been able to supply a lot of schools and communities with basic sanitary items, and so that has really skyrocketed her brand, because now
Right,
it's
because
not
now you
just
know who Shelly Ann Weeks is.
right, and not just in Jamaica, but the Caribbean, and now globally, because she has been part of some global initiative too. And guys, this is why timing is so important, because she started talking about this at the right time. And sometimes you need to research what is happening on the global front and how you can then interpret that locally, because then what you're trying to do is create a groundswell so you can then connect to that global movement and initiative and push your brand forward. Now, it may sound terrible, but it is really a good marketing tactic, because you want to be associated with this thing, and you're not just doing it because, again, it's philanthropical. There are benefits to your brand for doing it. So it's a win-win situation for everybody, right? Instagram don't have a $500,000 POC creator fund for no reason, right? And just coincidentally, it started around the Black Lives Matter movement.
Right.
Okay. But regardless, it is benefiting people. People are benefiting from it. And that's really the that's really all that matters in an instant like that, because
Right.
I'm sure people are not going to go, well, I don't want sanitary napkins because you're only doing it for the views. Nobody's going to say that. Right? She's offering something that is extremely valuable to people, and she's using her brand and to push it, and I think that's a great thing. All right, great. So the next one on my list is community marketing. Guys, I am an advocate for community marketing and community development, especially for small creators and small brands, because we don't have the budget. We're not have the money to advertise, right? Because there's ways that you can fast track your growth online, guys. And one of the ways you can do that is by just running ads. You can use a paid strategy and fast track your growth. You're running ads on YouTube, you're running ads on social media, you have ads in the paper, you have ads everywhere. Everywhere people turn is you them see. And that is a good way of fast tracking your growth. But is it sustainable? No, it is not. It is not sustainable if you don't have deep pockets, right? So while you can do a strategic ad here and a strategic ad there, I think organic is the best way to go about this. And the most effective organic marketing tool is community, right? Because here is where you're building relationships based on reciprocity. I give you value, and in exchange, I can leverage you as a community to further build my brand, to further build and grow my business. And this is another one-to-one marketing tactic, guys: community development. And I can attest to this because I've been using this organic strategy since the inception of Digital Jamaica. One thing you need to know about it, though, is that it is a slow process, but it is a steady process, which is why it is sustainable. So organic growth is slow, but it is steady and sustainable. And you can interject, as I said, strategically paid strategies or paid tactics throughout, but in the main, it is an organic strategy. And you can't do better than community members. And this is the thing: you don't even need every community member to buy something from you. In fact, they can do something better for you. They can act as your marketing agents, right? Because if you're providing them value, they're going to go out there and talk about it. I have been invited into spaces because of community members. I've done speaking engagements. I have done workshops and presentations because a community member went to their boss and go, hey, Kida, that girl on Digital Jamaica, so she knows shut up, but I think you guys should check her out. And because of that, I've had access to certain spaces, and it's because of my community, right? But you have to give as good as you get. You can't just say, all right, this is our community and I'm going to leverage the community. You have to build a relationship first. You have to build up a certain level of goodwill. I call it the goodwill bank. So there's a bank, and you have to deposit goodwill into that bank before you can withdraw growth from that bank, right? And the goodwill is based on the value relationships and the trust that you're building up between you and your community members. All right. Kemisha, your turn. What's next on your list?
Brand collaboration. So
All right.
they
I
have
have that here.
there's the saying, a rising tide lifts all ships. Aligning yourself with probably a more established brand on a project, on an initiative, whatever it is, to help to get you leverage their brand, the strength of their brand, to get your brand more visibility. No, you have to be careful because a bigger brand, it might envelop you, it might overshadow you. So you have to be very strategic in what you're doing, but in aligning yourself to brands that already have an audience, you have common, sentiments, you share common values and so on. Aligning yourself to that brand could get you visibility from their audience, which could then propel you into other spaces. So
Right.
that's always a good thing if you're a smaller business, you're a smaller brand, you're just starting out. So you partner, you get that visibility, you get this, you use the strength of their brand to get you into other spaces.
For sure, and share resources as well,
Resources,
because
of course.
resources can also be expensive, right? And so when you are collaborating, and again, it's a win-win for everybody, right, Kamisha?
Mhm.
Because you're creating something together that is greater than any individual brand could create. And who benefits? Your customers,
Everybody.
your clients. You earn, they earn, your client gets something that is even more valuable, or your audience
Mhm.
gets something that's even more valuable. That's also another way of cross-platforming as well, Kanisha, right? Introducing your brand to their audience and their brand to your audience. That's why it has to be complementary, guys. There has to be alignment there. It can't just be any random money. There has to be some kind of alignment there that would make sense for your audience to go, oh yeah, think of a Jackie Aina who is a major beauty influencer partnering with a makeup brand to create eyeshadows. It just makes sense. It just makes
Right.
sense because it's a natural organic progression, right? All right. So my next one is affiliate partnerships. I know affiliate marketing is a dirty word to a lot of people, right? Because it can go wrong. It can go really, 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 really wrong. But I'm not necessarily talking about affiliate marketing. I'm talking about affiliate partnerships. And this is where you're creating a referral program or a referral system with select individuals or other businesses. So this is a part of brand collaboration as well, to jointly promote each other's product. And I'll give you a prime example of somebody who was on our show, Will and Tomorrow. So let me share Will and Tomorrow so I can show you that they have an affiliate program, right? So if you talk to people, if you're in the space, so for instance, either you are an insurance person, let's say you're insurance and you're talking to people about, life insurance, blah blah blah. This is a good way to partner, especially if you're an independent insurance broker or insurance agent, right? You can partner with a Will and Tomorrow, where you're telling them that, hey, life insurance plus, make sure say your thing's set up, because wills are part of estate planning. And so this is a good way of introducing people to this brand, and then vice versa. So this affiliate program from Will and Tomorrow allow you to earn money, of course, because this is really about earn money. You can promote the business, family, friends, colleagues, and clients, and you are giving the resources to help them do that. And of course, you can earn money from doing that as well. So this is always a good tactic to help other. You're basically co-opting other people to help you market your brand, and you're incentivizing them for doing that. So this is a good tactic. But guys, the referral program have to make sense to both parties. You can't just say you have a referral program. It has to make financial sense for you and for that person, because if you're a smaller brand and you can't afford to monetarily incentivize them, then there are other ways that you can incentivize them as well, right? All right, Kanisha, what's up next on your end?
Well, my final tip would be network. You
Yes.
have to get yourself out there. And we find that especially with these new social media brands, these Instagram brands, you're on social media, you're posting every day, but nobody knows who you are. Nobody knows who's behind this brand. Nobody knows who started this brand. Who are the people? We don't know because you don't come from behind social media. You have to go out there and network. Go to the events, go to the conferences, go to the meetup spots where people in your industry tend to congregate, and get to know other people and let other people know you. Because
Right.
for me personally, one of the things that works best for my consulting is referrals. To be honest with you, I don't do much social media marketing or promoting on social media because most of my business comes from referrals. Just people say, I know Kamisha, Kamisha does good work for me. Here's her email address, here's her telephone number. So you have to ensure that people know you and know your business and can refer you. And when you go into these spaces, you have to make sure people can identify you. I'm talking branded apparels, I'm talking business cards, I'm talking just the way you present yourself. Have that elevator pitch down pat. Somebody asks you, Kadia, what's your business? You're able to tell them exactly what you do in a minute, because nobody has time to stand around and hear your 10-minute presentation. In a minute, you're able to say, this is my company, this is what we do, here's my business card, this is my logo on my shirt, and you're ready to go. So go out there personally, get people to know you as the person behind the brand, especially if you're a small company or a one-man shop. Get your brand out there, get into the spaces, and you don't know, people you meet at one of these places could bring your brand to places you would never imagine. They'll bring your
Exactly.
brand into rooms and into spaces that no amount of social media advertising, no amount of online advertising could ever get you. So you have to personally get out there and promote your brand.
For sure. And what are some of the ways that you can network, Kamisha? What are some of the ways that you can actually do this networking?
Well, for one, it's looking out for those events, those meetups. You know, COVID kind of took those away from us for a while, but they're slowly coming back. So if there's a particular industry that you work in, keep your ear to the ground and see where those people in your industry are about to meet up. Um, the investing community is one where they're having loads of events. You have Stocks on the Rocks, which started out as a very informal meetup spot out on Palisados, and it's now evolving into a whole brand. So you find those locations where people are meeting up and you get yourself into them.
Yeah.
It could also be just meeting another person who's in your industry or aligned with your industry, and that's a networking opportunity. Introducing yourself, which can be hard for some people like myself who have some amount of social anxiety, but introducing yourself to people and quickly just letting them know what it is you do, what your brand is about, and how they can reach you. And you don't know. They might be in a meeting, a top level, high level meeting, and your brand comes up. So you have to work on getting yourself personally out there. Know that the restrictions are lifted. Get yourself back out on the street.
For sure, for sure. So trade shows, liming and networking events. One of the ones that the event that Joel had recently with Red Stripe, guys, I wasn't able to make it, but I saw the pictures and people were meeting people and taking pictures and meeting people that you've been talking to online for the longest time, but it's the first time you were actually able to meet. So that was an awesome initiative from Joel. Kingston Beta is also back, guys, and it's an opportunity to meet people. You don't have to be in the digital space. It could just be business networking, because I met Brian at Kingston Beta, and though Brian is in the tech space, his thing is really, his thing was mostly IT, but Brian was there to just meet other people in the digital and tech space and Lime and network, because he was new to the space, and he wanted to meet other people who could help guide him. So guys, not because it's a finance event or it's a tech event means you should not go. If companies and people are there that you think would benefit your business, or that you think these are customers that are potential customer base that you have not yet tapped into, and that could be the difference between your business and another business. You could be tapping into a different customer base that nobody else is paying attention to. You never know until you show up at these events, right? All right. So
Right.
my last one, so that was Kamisha's last. My last is, I said affiliate partnerships already. It's was said publishing already. So my last is gamification in marketing. Okay. So what do I mean by gamification in marketing? So this again is most effective in the community space, and this is one way that you can kind of build your community and maintain that community. So it's a hyper engagement strategy where you're providing immersive and fun experience with your brand. And basically the word gamification comes from gaming, where you're talking about creating a reward system, right? That's pretty much what it is. So you are rewarding members for being members of the month based on some point system, right? Or you're rewarding somebody for being the person who contributed the most to the group for the month. Whatever it is, you're creating a system where people can feel like their contributions, their participation is actually worth something, and it will make them want to continue to participate and contribute. Because that's why you have airlines that have frequent flyer miles, or you have banks that have cashback reward systems. Scotia partner with Magna Card, so you can get additional points that you can redeem for money. So that is really what that is: giving somebody a badge or giving them some kind of and sometimes, again, guys, it's not all about money. The reward doesn't have to be monetary. It could just be a position of value within the community that everybody will strive to be, right? And that alone in of itself is value, because you have to understand the psychology of communities, right? Everybody in the community is on an equal level, yes, but if you can promote from within that community to somebody, if you can promote within the community somebody to a higher level, like say maybe if you can be the moderator for the community for a month, or you could be somebody who is responsible for vetting content on the platform based on whatever it is based on. You are now, that is a way of incentivizing community members, because nobody wants to necessarily just remain part of the crowd. You want to elevate yourself, and you're helping them elevate themselves in their eyes and in the eyes of the community. And that's always a good thing if people feel like they're valuable in that way. It's psychological, right? But it works whether you're a small brand or whether you're a big brand. It also works. So guys, that's, I think we've given you 10, but I think there was a lot more. That, is there anything that we didn't cover? No, we covered everything. So that's it, guys. That's 10 digital and non-digital ways that you can grow your business online. But before Kamisha goes, Kamisha, why is it important that small brands have a PR strategy?
Because that's how you communicate your brand to people. People do not buy products, they buy people. They need to know your story, they need to know where your brand is coming from, what's important to your brand, what it's doing. All of that comes out in storytelling. So having that storytelling strategy, which is basically what PR is, it's how to get your brand out there through storytelling. So having that is important because people want to know what your brand is about, not just the products you sell or the services you provide. What's your brand about? What are the things that are important to your brand? What are your values? Where it's coming from? How it started? What are the challenges? Those things are what form the brand story. So it's
Yeah.
important, no matter how small you are, that you have that strategy on how to get that story out to your potential customers or your potential clients, and they can then able to feel like they're a part of your story, they're a part of your brand. That is very important. So I would encourage all small companies, small brands. You don't have to wait until you get to $500 million in revenue per year before you start thinking about having a PR strategy to get your brand out there, to get to build your brand reputation, to build that customer base and that family. You know, brands love to talk about we're a family. That's how
Right.
you build the family.
Right.
People have to know your story to be a part of the family.
For
So
sure. For sure.
it's very important that you get that out there from as early as possible and they continue to build on that as the brand grows.
Yeah. An example that come to mind, guys, I love a case study. An example that come to mind, Terry Carell Reed. Terry Carell has done a brilliant job as her own public relations person. Ain't nobody can tell a brand story like Terry Carell, and it's very strategic. It might seem that, oh, it's just some random thing. It's not random. It's not random by a long shot. This is very strategic on her part, and she has used it so effectively that she has been able to parlay, okay, her experience and her expertise into a very lucrative career, and now she's expanding. She's now an author, so she's
Right.
expanding into other areas, and this is a function of a digital strategy and definitely a PR strategy. So Kamisha, what services do you offer? Because we were a small brand and we are like, do we need a PR person? We can't afford a PR person. So I know you do work with small brands. What kind of services do you offer to these small brands?
Well, definitely media relations. That's getting your name out in traditional press, in non-traditional press. So getting you on the TV, the radio, the newspaper in earned spots. Because you can always get on in advertising. You can pay your money and run an ad or pay your money and get an interview. But now we're talking about, which I also do, I also book those. But we're also talking about earned spots, which is where I position your brand to the journalists, to the producers, to the editors to get your story picked up, to get you that interview, which is not guaranteed, but we have our ways to get you that interview, to get you that write up in the newspaper, to help to put your brand out there. Also do copywriting, which is a very important thing that a lot of brands
Oh
do not
yes.
pay enough attention to, because
Oh yes.
everybody think they are a copywriter. You know, it's just writing after all. But no, I also do copywriting and general PR consulting, because there also are people who don't know that just the way you present yourself is a part of your PR. How you carry yourself is a part of PR. You're about to do an interview. How you look in that interview is a part of your PR. So general PR consulting, media relations, copywriting,
Yeah.
brand journalism, telling the brand story through traditional and digital media. That's what I do.
And she's also a very good connector, guys. She's good at connecting you with to different people and spaces and stuff. So that's always a good thing. All right, Kamisha. So where can they find you if they're not going? Oh yeah, I definitely need to do PR because I'm sick of social media. Where can they find you? Where can I get into? How can I get in touch with you?
Well, the easiest way to get in touch with me is through email. So drop me an email, kimandersonpr@gmail.com. and that's where you'll get the quickest response. I'm also on all social media platforms. It's Kim Anderson PR on Instagram, Kim Anderson PR on Twitter. I'm on LinkedIn, Kemisha Anderson as well. But you want to reach me, drop me an email.
All right. So it's Kim Anderson.
And
Kim Anderson PR, right? Kim Anderson.
yes, PR.
Okay. Kim Anderson PR at gmail.com. And you can be found on
Instagram
Instagram, LinkedIn,
and Twitter.
and Twitter at Kim Anderson PR.
Right.
All right, then, guys. So if you're a small brand or a small creator and you want to get off the social media rat race, we're not telling you to get off completely. In fact, we're not telling you to get off at all. We're telling you
Oh,
to move away from social media being your prime or only means of
and worse.
communicating with your audience, because it is not sustainable for you mentally or physically, and it is not sustainable for your business or your brand. Okay, guys? Thank you so much, Kamisha, for coming on the show and talking to me about this. Guys, Kamisha was very careful. It's like, we are not saying, I am not saying that social media is bad. So I'm hoping that's not where you're going.
I
So,
definitely,
so I'm
definitely
very
not.
careful that that's not what we're saying, guys. Social media is extremely effective, but social media is only one digital platform, and it's a digital platform that is good for a set of things, but not everything is not a panacea. Good for one thing or two thing, but then you have to think about what are the other platforms that you have to create an ecosystem around your business. You can have multiple platforms. You can have a funneling strategy where you're moving people away from social media to your other platform. Notice I didn't even mention website. I didn't even mention websites. Do I think everybody should have a website? If this was 2 years ago, I would say yes. No, I'm saying it is not necessary, but it is good to have a at least a one page website out there, because remember, not all your audience is social media savvy. Your audience could be businesses who they're looking for more substantial ways of finding out about you, right? And so they want a website, or they want something written, or would even mention media kits. Guys, there's so many different ways that you can market and push your brand without social media. Kemisha, thank you so much for jumping on and sharing that with me. Guys, reach out to Kim Anderson. If it's even just for a consultation session, reach out and see how your brand can move from where it is now into a different space through PR. Thank you, Kemisha.
Always a pleasure, Kadia.
All right. All right, guys. Now I have something special. Before you go, I have something special because I talk about organic strategies a lot, and I've never really shared what I have done to build out Digital Jamaica. I have actually created a framework for myself. It's an organic strategic framework. And strategic framework just means a model or a formula or a methodology to do something. And I've actually been working on this for 4 years now, and it has served me really, 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 really well. And I think I'm ready to share it with you guys, because it was in bits and pieces in different documents all over my computer, and I'm like, what is the best way to present it to you? So I actually created a visual framework that I'm going to be sharing with you. I'm in the process of editing the video because I did a video on it that I'm going to put on YouTube. And it's about how you can grow your brand online organically, because I do think, for the 500 million time on the show, that it is the most effective and sustainable way to build and grow your brand online, no matter where in the process you are, whether you're new, whether you've already been doing this, or whether you're just ready to go into your next growth phase. This can work for you. And it's called the VRT strategic framework. So VRT really stands for visibility, relevance, and timing, because as far as I'm concerned, those are the three key elements to brand building online. You have to be visible, you have to be saying things that are relevant to people, and you have to choose your timing wisely. You don't want to miss time, because mistiming can mean canceling, right? Or getting canceled. I'm, as I said, I did a video, and I'm going to be doing a workshop. It is a free workshop. Don't worry about it. So I'm going to be doing, it's not a workshop, it's a 4-part live video series, where each week I'm going to be doing another part of the video where I'm going deep diving and going through this framework, because there's another component to the framework. I call them the 4 building blocks. We're going to talk about the building blocks, and there are some variables that you have to keep in mind. I'm going to talk about that as well. Now, the framework is not a strategy, but it is a tool to help you build a strategy and tactics and an implementation plan. So if you are interested in that, guys, that video will be out on Thursday, and the workshop starts on, like I tell you, when the workshop starts on the 26th. So each week I'm going to be doing a live. We're going to talk about different elements, and then afterwards we're going to have a Q&A session and all that good stuff. The only catch, the only caveat is that I'm really doing this for my group, my community over on Telegram. I am relaunching the Digital Learning Hub, and that's where I'm going to be doing this live. It is also free. Don't worry about it. It's also a free group, right? So I'm relaunching the group because there are some new activities that I want to do with you guys, and there's some new things that I want to offer to you in the group. And it's really for small creators and brands who, when you just start, you don't know nothing about marketing. You just know that you want to grow your business online. And so I really take the guesswork out of marketing for you. You get access to my private blog. I do have a private blog. You get access to my private blog. You get access to monthly workshops. You get access to experts. Because one thing I like doing, and that I have been doing in all my workshops, is I usually invite guest experts into the space so they can explain to you, and they're always local or relatable in some way, because I think that's just the best way to make it make sense for you. So you'll have access to that. And of course, I'll be doing some publishing within that group, and you can have access to those as well. You get video transcripts, and you get the resources. Some are free, some are premium, which means you've got to pay for them. But the group is free, and the video series is free. So that group, I'm going to be relaunching that group on Thursday as well, when the video comes out. So you can look out for that. Follow us on Digital Jamaica. On our platforms, the announcement will be made on our platforms, and you can sign up to join the group and sign up to be a part of the video series. Hi Juma, welcome to the show. Hi Juma. I love the useful content creation show, guys. If you are on LinkedIn, please follow Juma Bannister. He has a live show called the Weekly Content Creation Show, the Useful Content Creation Show. And he gives you a lot of tips about how to content tips, set up your camera, what type of content you need to be making for your business. It is amazing content, and I can't believe it's free. So definitely check out Juma, guys. He has some really awesome guests on the show as well. So check him out on YouTube, and look out for the Digital Learning Hub coming out on, sorry, I kept saying Thursday, on Friday. Jeez, not Thursday, on Friday. My father keeps calling me. My dad keeps calling me. So it comes out on Friday, guys. As of Friday, you can sign up to be a part of the free Telegram group and sign up to get access to the live video series. All right, guys, gotta go. Thank you so much for joining our show today. Next week on the show, I keep forgetting what I'm supposed to be saying. Next week on the show, we have Ingrid Riley. Ingrid is going to be on the show to talk about ride sharing wars. There's Uber, there's InDriver, there's Get There. No Traveler has an app. Who is going to win the ride sharing wars? That's what we're going to be talking about next week on the Digital Jamaica, sorry, next week on Digital Jamaica Live, Ingrid is going to be talking to us about the development of ride sharing apps in the Caribbean, and there's going to be some surprises too about the origins of some of these companies. Look out for that because it's interesting. And the reception to ride sharing in Jamaica, what we think about it, how we think that market is going to grow, and who we think is going to dominate the market. So if you're interested in that, join us next week for another Digital Jamaica Live. Visit our website, thedigitalJamaica.com. We have an awesome blog full of stories about people in the digital space who are doing awesome things. We have a really great podcast. The last podcast season, we were talking about everything you need to know about blockchain and Web3, and it was really fun and interesting. So you can go listen to that. And yeah, join us over in the Digital Learning Hub come Friday, and you can have access to even more good stuff so we can learn and grow together. Yeah, sounds good? Okay, great, guys. So I will see you guys Friday in the Digital Learning Hub. And then next week, Tuesday, for another Digital Jamaica Live. All right, guys, then take care. Thanks for watching.